Bonjour, Kirby Jambon ici encore. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. On my YouTube channel I've presented some of my poetry before, but today what I want to talk about a little bit more is the inspiration behind some poems. So today you're going to hear two poems that I'm going to read, and I'm going to speak about what the inspirations were behind writing of those poems beforehand. This idea was actually inspired by what's going on right now in Louisiana here. Normally at this time of year we have the Festival International de Louisiane, but due to the COVID-19 situation, there is no in-person festival, but the wonderful organizers of the festival created something absolutely superb, and that's a virtual festival. And yesterday we were watching the virtual festival, my wife and I, and we were watching, for example, we were watching a wonderful musician, a Haitian musician who lives in New Orleans, and she was giving us the story and the inspiration behind her music. And my wife says, you know, that's not something we always get as much detail at the actual in-person festival. You get some of it, but you don't really get all of the backstory and the inspiration. And so it made it a very nice experience. And they were sitting there just like I am, recording a video into a phone, and but sharing the inspirations behind. There she was sharing the inspiration behind her music. So I'm going to share the inspiration behind two poems for you today, and there were two poems I thought were particularly fitting for what I'm feeling now and for what perhaps maybe some people in the world are feeling. They're both poems that come from my book Petites, which means little communions, and the idea behind this book was the idea of ways in which I seek to find connections with, or ways I would seek to be in communion with different aspects of my life, different aspects of the world, the people around me, with my culture, with nature, with the spirituality, with the political world, the natural world, the popular culture, other writers. There's all kinds of different ways that I seek to find connections and communion with these folks. And perhaps maybe if you read it, which is it's available through Éditions Tintamarre. Again, the website is on my About page on my Facebook channel, along with other websites. Check them out. But again, if you maybe you'll find some ways that you're in communion as well. Now, the two poems I'm going to share with you today come from two different chapters in the book. The first one comes from the first chapter, which is called La Voix Intérieure. Voix spelled V-O-I-X. Voix is the word for voice, so La Voix Intérieure would be the interior voice, the internal voice, the inner voice. And so poems in that chapter tend to reflect things that come from within. The second poem I'm going to read comes from the second chapter called La Voie Extérieure, but voie that time is spelled V-O-I-E, which means like a lane or a path or a way to get somewhere, as a road, and like a means of getting somewhere. So it's the external way, the external lane, the way of getting away. So it's a way that we go out into the world, and what do we do into the world, kind of thing. So for what it's worth. And also the two poems speak of animals. So today we're going to be speaking of crabs and wolves. Yes, we will. The first poem is called La crabe molle. La crabe molle means, in Louisiana French, means the soft-shell crab. In Louisiana French, crabe is a feminine noun. Elsewhere in the French-speaking world, it's pretty much a masculine noun. In Louisiana, it's a feminine noun. So molle is the feminine form of the adjective soft. So soft-shell crab becomes a la crabe molle. And so I began thinking about this idea of the idea of molting, of losing your heart out of service and then becoming soft, which is what the blue crab in Louisiana does. And I thought about that metaphor for us as human beings as well, and see how that applied to us. By the way, just to let you know, the soft shell crabs are considered quite a delicacy by many folks as well. I'm always inspired by music, and for many generations, I think Louisiana French language musicians have been our wonderful literary source, both in their beautiful poetry that is in their music. And so it's inspired by two musicians. In fact, I write that in there, that the poem is inspired by two musicians, Horace Trahan, who is a younger Cajun musician. I had the pleasure of teaching some of Horace's kids, and Horace was a wonderful Zydeco musician, Cajun Creole musician. And on his very first album, he had a song called Ça va pas comme tu veux. Yeah, it's not going like you wanted. And it's also inspired by another great musician, but probably my favorites of all time, the late great Nathan Abshire. It's inspired by a saying he used to say. It's called, said, "The good times are killing me." And also there's a couple of lines to some songs. One line which is called "Le temps pour marcher," which means the time is walking on, marching on, going on. And I say it's also, for those of you interested, it says it's inspired by Calanectus sapidus. Well, that's sapidus. That's not actually a person. That's the scientific name for the blue crab. Now, there's also another inspiration that went into making this whole poem. And it was an inspirational talk I received many, many years ago when I was a young adult at a retreat. I don't know if a priest or a monk sort gave this talk. He talked about this idea of growing older and what happens when you grow older. And as I'm growing older, I really can relate to what he said in that talk. It says, as we grow older, one of two things will happen. Either we'll become angrier and more bitter, harder. We'll become less forgiving. We might become more sad, sadder, more depressed, because our life has not turned out the way we wanted. Or we'll become more loving and compassionate and open and forgiving and generous because our life has not turned out the way we wanted. But maybe we know something a little more. But maybe we see that everyone else's life has not turned out the way they wanted as well. So all of those thoughts came together. All this thoughts came together. This communion of thoughts came together to inspire this poem. Now, for those of you who are not fluent in the French language, the good news is every now and then I'm able to find the poetry in the English language in a poem that I originally wrote in French. So you're going to hear the original French version, and you're also going to hear English version. They don't go word for word, and it might not have some of the same rhythm and rhyme and other elements because it does change from language to language. But I think the English version does give you an idea of what the French version says pretty well. So here's the French version, La crabe molle. L'occasion se présente. C'est passé le présent. Tu te sens que la vie, tu connais, ça va pas comme tu veux. Tu vieillis, tu choisis, t'endurcis, t'adoucis. Tu dis que la vie, tu connais, ça va pas comme tu veux. Travailler, c'est trop fou. Retraiter, c'est trop doux. Pour tous, la vie, tu connais, ça va pas comme tu veux. Tu deviens engourdi, confortable, endormi. Même si la vie, tu connais, ça va pas comme tu veux. Dépouillé pour passer le temps pré-marché. Oh ouais, la vie, tu connais, ça va pas comme tu veux. Les bons temps qui te tuent, mais les mauvais, ça pue. T'as su que la vie, tu connais, ça va pas comme tu veux. Désabrié, découvert, toi tu te mues et tu te perds. Mais cher, la vie, tu connais, ça va pas comme tu veux. Mais en dedans, tu connais que t'es né tout pareil. C'est OK, la vie, tu connais qui va pas comme tu veux. And now the English version of the soft-shell crab. The occasion presents itself. The present has passed. You think that the life you know is not turning out the way you wanted. You grow older and make choices. You grow harder or softer. You say that the life you know is not turning out the way you wanted. Working's too hard. Retiring's too soft. You feel that the life you know is not turning out the way you wanted. You become numb, comfortable, asleep, even if the life you know is not turning out the way you wanted. You bear yourself to experience the march of time. More and more, the life you know is not turning out the way you wanted. The good times can kill you. The stench of bad times makes you ill. You see that the life you know is not turning out the way you wanted. Uncovered, discovered, you shed your skin and find that you're lost. You found out that the life you know is not turning out the way you wanted. But inside you know it's okay. That you were born ready for it. This life that you know that's not turning out the way you want it. Just another little point of communion inspiration, that last little line was something my dad always said. I always say, ask Dad if you were ready. He'd say, oh, I was born ready. And so something he always would say, je suis né paré. Now, the second poem from the chapter La Voie Extérieure, the external lane, the external way, the outer way. It's called Pensées out of the box grâce au courriel la belle-famille, which means thoughts out of the box, thanks to an email from the in-laws. And that was actually the beginning of this poem, was inspired by an email it was from my wife's grandmother. And in it, she had this story, this Cherokee legend, supposedly, of that inside of us there are two wolves that are constantly fighting. And one is a wolf of anger and aggression and violence, and the other is a wolf of compassion and love and generosity. And then when the elder is telling this story to the younger person, the young person asks, well, which one wins? And the elder responded, well, the wolf that wins is the wolf we feed. And so I started thinking about the idea of feeding the wolves, and I started thinking about our society, our culture we live in, the culture of our country, political culture, world culture, religious culture, popular culture, all of these different aspects, and what are they feeding us? What are they feeding us, and is it which wolf inside of us are they feeding? And I start many times we see that we place things in boxes. We tend to try to place certain persons in boxes and certain ideas. I know in my life sometimes I find it difficult. Is that when someone whom I care about and love very much, and we see things very, very differently, we have very different opinions, and I think it's because I'm boxing them, and we can't be boxed. And I think we can't box people. We're all this combination of different things in our life. And so all of those kind of ideas went into the writing of this poem. And it also includes another story from my dad about that happened to my grandfather one time when he was an insurance agent many years ago, and he'd be called up to go to these national meetings which were held up in Nashville, Tennessee, and so it has all of these different elements in it. This concept of being boxed in, the elements of our culture, opinions about my personal opinions about what's happening in our culture, and the concept of the wolves. And so I'm going to read for you right now the French version of that poem, and then I'll read you the English version. Les Cherokees nous racontent qu'il y a une bataille entre deux loups à l'intérieur de nous. Et le loup qui gagne est celui qu'on nourrit. Si je vis devant la boîte imbécile emboîtée dans ma boîte que j'appelle chez moi, je commence à avoir en boîte toute la culture et la vie nationale. Chaque boîte nous fait manger un différent plat. La boîte de culture nationaliste nous offre une entrée de faux patriotisme, de fausse fierté, où nous croyons que nous sommes les plus forts, les plus libres, les plus généreux, et nous ne questionnons pas nos croyances. La boîte de culture religieuse nous offre une salade de bonnes intentions qui est souvent couverte d'une sauce d'intolérance et de culpabilité. La boîte de culture politique nous offre un plat principal de peur. Peur des crimes, peur des terroristes, peur des immigrants, peur des étrangers, des peurs qui nous amènent à la colère, à la haine, à la violence. La boîte de culture populaire nous offre un dessert de matérialisme et d'hédonisme, adouci d'excès sucrés et de manque de responsabilité. Et nous demandons pourquoi le gros méchant loup engraisse toujours. Pourtant, je vois encore un feu dans la cheminée chez le loup d'espoir. Il a besoin d'ingrédients pour faire son gombo d'amour. La joie, la foi, la compassion, la compréhension. Je pense un moment à mon grand-père. Je me souviens d'une histoire d'une réunion pour les agents d'assurance National Life. Un Américain lui demande, Kirby, say something in French. Mon papa répond, mais espèce d'imbécile, tu vas jamais comprendre ce que je dis. Tout le monde applaudit. Allons-nous comprendre? Aouh! Le loup a faim. Allons nous donner à manger? And now the English version of Thoughts Out of the Box, thanks to an email from the in-laws. The Cherokees tell us that there is a battle between two wolves inside each of us, and the wolf that wins is the one we feed. If I live in front of this idiot box of imbeciles boxed up in this box I call home, I begin to see our national life and culture in boxes. Each box feeds us a different course. The box of nationalist culture offers us an appetizer of false patriotism and of false pride, where we believe we are the strongest, the most free, the most generous, and we never question our beliefs. The box of religious culture offers us a salad of good intentions, often dressed with a dressing of intolerance and guilt. The box of political culture offers us a main course of fears. Fear of crimes, fear of terrorists, fear of strangers, fear of immigrants, fears which bring us to anger, to hate, to violence. The box of popular culture offers us a dessert of materialism and hedonism, sweetened with sugared excess and a lack of responsibility. And we wondered why the big bad wolf's always getting fat. Yet, I still see a fire in the fireplace at the home of the wolf of hope. He needs ingredients for his gumbo of love: joy, faith, compassion, understanding. I think for a moment about my grandfather, and I remember a story about a meeting of the National Life Insurance agents. An American asked him, "Kirby, say something in French." My papa responds in his Cajun French, "Mais you imbécile, you're never going to understand what I'm saying." Everyone applauds. Will we understand? How? The wolf is hungry. Will we feed him? Hopefully you'll feed the wolf of compassion and love today. Allons donner manger au loup de compassion et loup d'amour. Soignez vous autres, soignez les autres. À la prochaine. Au revoir.